Viscometer software on the computer. You click here in order for you to start. The username is admin. The password is 1234. It takes you to this page and you want to hit so when you click for the first time, when you click experiment and you click start, it's going to ask for a verification code. I already put that in, and after you put in, it's gonna let you run like what it's doing right now. So there are a couple of things you need to set up before you start. The first thing is the spindle type. So there is a choice that you can make. I'm going to be using spindle L1, and for the density you have to keep that the same, unless if in your experiment you are going to be comparing densities, then you can change it, but you can leave it at 1. And you can name your experiment, maybe say experiment 1, and you can name your sample. I'm going to be using water for this simple experiment. And here you can, for the parameters experiment, there are 3 options you have. You can either use ramp or multi-step or step. I'm going to be using step. And for the speed of your spindle, you can pick what you want, but I'm going to be using. So the speed also depends on the kind of spindle you're using, also your sample. So you want to read the manual before you pick a specific speed, because at lower speed you're working with laminar flow, and at higher speeds you're working with turbulent flow. And most of the times, if your experiment is under turbulent flow, you might not get the best results. So I'm going to work with 100 rotations per minute just to keep it at laminar flow. And the duration, I wanted to record in 1 minute, which is 60 seconds. And I'm going to add to queue. This shows that you can have as many experiments set up at a time, and it will. So if you have listed maybe 3 or 4 experiments down, it will run one after the other. After the first one, it will ask you whether you want to run the second one. If you click yes, it will run it. And here you have an option to select. It's just by clicking on it. You can move it up in the line or move it down in the line. You can remove it if you have several experiments that are in queue. So here, before you start, you have to come here and put your spindle in the water. So you want to make sure that your spindle gets in up to this marked dent. So you want to make sure the spindle gets inside up to the dent, like the mark. So make sure it's immersed up to the mark, and just make sure the bottom of the protector, these bars, does not touch the base of your beaker. And so here, because this is done, I'm going to come here and click. Oh, before you click start, I'm sorry, you want to put in your temperature probe so that you can also measure the temperature of your sample whilst you're collecting your data. And then next you click start. It's going to ask you if you really want to follow through with this experiment, and click OK. So this is how it runs. So it's going to start running. The reason why it's beeping is because I'm using a wrong spindle. See, because I'm using a wrong spindle, I'm going to abort. So you want to use a spindle in which your torque is at least 50%. Is at least, is it? So you can you have to change the spindle so that the torque is at least 15%. That is the reason why it is beeping. So the results can be shown. You will still get results, but they might not be as accurate as when your torque is, you know, 50%, 15% and above. You will still get results, and these results show the viscosity with time. So at first, when the spindle starts rotating, it kind of fluctuates until it, you know, just gives the actual recording that you want, and the line just evens out. So here you can save the experiment if you want. You can click yes, and that's it. And here it gives you so there is a scroll bar. You can scroll it down and scroll it up. It gives you all the data that you have, that the computer recorded, and you can save it on Excel and maybe name it to experiment 1, then save. Remember, if it's beeping, it means something is wrong. Either your speed is too much or you're using the wrong spindle. So if it starts beeping, change your spindle or change the speed with which you are doing your experiment. So now I'm going to do my experiment using oil, and I'm going to use spindle L1 because that's what works for oil. For water, you want to use L2. Okay, that should be all.